Hello, I'm Esther Gidhu. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. Israel prepares to launch a full-scale operation in Gaza's southern city of Rafah, even as the United States expresses its objections. A Ugandan non-profit organization helps children develop a love for nature and become responsible stewards of the environment. And 2 South African doctors develop a medical specialty utilizing small amounts of radioactive substances to diagnose and treat various diseases. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin our broadcast in the Middle East, where the United Nations says more than 500,000 Palestinians have been displaced in recent days by escalating Israeli military operations in both southern and northern Gaza. Aid workers are struggling to distribute dwindling supplies to Palestinians in makeshift camps facing devastating levels of hunger. Israeli forces are battling militants in northern areas despite launching major operations earlier in the war. Meanwhile, thick clouds of black smoke rose from an area bordering Jabalia in northern Gaza on Tuesday. Helicopters and jets were seen flying over as Israeli troops resumed fighting in the north of the Gaza Strip. The renewed fighting there is underscoring concern in Israel that the lack of a clear strategic plan for Gaza will leave Hamas in effective control of the enclave it has ruled since 2007. Washington says it is working to resolve the many issues in the Israel-Hamas war as negotiations continue amid Israeli plans to launch a full-scale operation in Rafah over U.S. objections. VOA's Anita Powell reports from the White House.
The grief of thousands of people underscores world leaders' urgent attempts to end the war in Gaza after more than 7 months. Fear hangs over the people of Gaza as they scramble for safety under the shadow of a threatened full Israeli offensive into the crowded city of Rafah. And growing youth anger over the unceasing violence has inflamed American universities and spread beyond the shores of the U.S. At this delicate point, the White House said Monday that Washington is still plugging away at negotiations in Cairo aimed at securing the release of hostages and a truce.
This particular negotiation has had its ups and downs, its ins and outs, its twists and turns. And what I laid out in my opening comments remains the case. There could be a ceasefire tomorrow if Hamas would just go ahead and release women, wounded, and elderly. We do believe Israel has put a good proposal on the table. Hamas has put a counter proposal on the table. The world is calling for a ceasefire. Those who are doing so should go to Hamas and say, come to the table and work until we get a deal.
And he acknowledged to VOA there are new fissures in that process. Egypt, which is hosting negotiations, recently came out in support of South Africa's International Court of Justice case against Israel for genocide.
I can't say that it's helpful to the discussions between Egypt and Israel to try to sort out the humanitarian assistance and access issues, but I do know that Egypt, Israel, the United States, the United Nations, we are all trying to work together to figure out a way forward.
Analysts say Washington's message is also muddled, especially on Israel's plans to mount a major military operation in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. Sullivan said Monday that Israel has conducted only targeted strikes there so far.
There's been some mixed signals from the administration. Sometimes it seems like they're against anything in Rafah. Sometimes they say, no, we're not against, but we just haven't seen the right sort of plan. So I think that this needs to be clarified.
Meanwhile, as Washington tries to make a clear plan, Israel's leadership faces pressure from citizens who accuse Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of fanning the flames of Palestinian violence.
Just wanted to emphasize to Prime Minister Netanyahu his responsibility for what happened here on October 7th.
Meanwhile, as officials try to talk their way to peace, Israel's strikes on Gaza continue. Anita Powell, VOA News, the White House.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa's office says he is expected on Wednesday to sign into law a national health insurance bill that aims to provide universal coverage to South Africans. The signing of the bill, popular among voters, comes just before the May 29th national election that could test the African National Congress's 30-year rule. The bill, which is to be implemented in stages at a cost of billions of dollars, received Ramaphosa's approval after it was passed by lawmakers last year. However, concerns remain over whether the struggling public system is ready to implement such an ambitious plan, according to healthcare workers, patients, and business groups.
For NHI to work, we need more doctors on the floor. One, we need more nurses on the floor. We need porters. We need consumables. We need equipment. We need better facilities. We need better buildings. We need more space.
They must hire the doctors. They must hire the nurses because the staff of the hospital is very few. So we patients, we are so many, and we are waiting on the queue for so long.
South Africa's public health system, used by the majority of the population, contrasts starkly in quality with the private sector that caters for those who can pay for it. At least 16 African countries, including South Africa, are holding elections in the remaining months of 2024. Voters who go online for political news are risking exposure to disinformation and misinformation. But a new digital ethics organization aims to help journalists and activists identify false and misleading content. Zahir Kasim reports from Johannesburg.
In the upcoming general elections of 2026.
At first glance, this video of Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema announcing that he won't be running in the next election seems authentic, but it's fake. And these journalists in Johannesburg are learning how to spot the difference with the help from a non-profit called Campaign on Digital Ethics, or CODE. Kavisha Pillay is the founding director of CODE.
We're making sure that people are accessing information that is safe and is not going to be harmful, that the technology that we're using is not going to cause further harms to our society.
Working with CODE on this project is Africa Check, one of the continent's leading independent fact-checking organizations. The staff at Africa Check encourage people to send them suspicious content. They're collaborating with CODE to teach the public how to identify fake social media content.
It helps to have not just someone to step in and do some work checking that kind of information, but also to be able to share tips and tricks and techniques for stepping in to stop that spread with anyone.
Community activist Manny Sigomani will be on high alert in the days leading to South Africa's May 29th elections, on the lookout for any fake content that might affect his ward.
I think we're moving into an era where more and more the truth is being distorted, and we kind of need these kind of initiatives to keep people grounded and to keep people responsible.
The Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa has announced it will work with Google, Meta and TikTok to help safeguard the integrity of the electoral process. Zahir Kasim, VOA News, Johannesburg, South Africa.
While both the Biden and Trump campaigns share their messaging on abortion, VOA's Veronica Balderas Iglesias reports on how the issue of reproductive rights is faring in the minds of citizens and lawmakers ahead of the 2024 presidential election.
While campaigning for reproductive rights in Pennsylvania on Wednesday, Vice President Kamala Harris, President Joe Biden's running mate, condemned abortion restrictions being enforced in several states, including Florida's ban on abortions more than 6 weeks after inception.
We have to just call it for what it is. Do you not trust women to know what is in their own best interest? You, some legislator in some state capital, the majority of whom are not women, are in a better position to tell her what she should do? But see, we're going to vote.
Biden says if re-elected, he will restore Roe v. Wade, a landmark Supreme Court decision that for 5 decades ensured a woman's right to an abortion. The presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump took to his Truth social media platform on May 5th to underscore his position on the topic. He wrote that the abortion matter is up to the states, that it will never go back to the federal government, and that the country will soon start uniting on this long contentious issue. 3 of the 5 Supreme Court justices who voted to overturn Roe v. Wade in 2022 were appointed by Trump. Currently, 41 states ban abortions after some period, ranging from 6 to 24 weeks after gestation, with certain exceptions, according to the Guttmacher Institute. The restrictions have motivated many voters, says Joe Becker with Human Rights Watch.
We've seen state ballot measures that have really turned out women voters in particular to try and enshrine abortion rights in their state.
Both the Trump and the Biden campaigns are counting on a state-by-state strategy to see whether abortion is a winning issue in the 2024 general election, says George Mason University law professor Helen Alvarez, who identifies herself as a pro-life Democrat.
The degree to which the Biden campaign has made it, I think, the New York Times and others are calling it their #1 issue. That's a strategy decision they've made, and it could give them a couple percentage points advantage. That said, it's in deep competition with questions about the economy, inflation, and immigration.
Interviewed in North Carolina, Duke University student Amaya Clayton told VOA's Spanish service that she and her peers see reproductive rights as a big issue.
That's been a constant conversation in the U.S. since the overturning of Roe with Dobbs v. Jackson. And so I think that's something that a lot of students are very passionate about and caring about a lot.
In New Hampshire, Republican State Representative Jim Cofault says he's heard a range of concerns among voters.
There's a lot of concern that at the state level we're going to apply widespread restrictions on abortion. But that has not been the case at all this legislative cycle. I think there is a much longer conversation that we need to have as a society about how we feel about that and where we think it's appropriate to draw the line.
The debate, however, is turning into legislative battles, mostly along party lines in states like Arizona, where a near total abortion ban was recently repealed. Analysts expect the legal battles will continue at the state level, but caution it's still early to predict whether abortion will be the issue that voters will prioritize when heading to the polls in November. Veronica Valderas Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
Little Hands Go Green is a non-profit organization in Uganda that teaches children about the environment. Their goal is to help children develop a love for nature and become responsible stewards of the environment, which will have a positive impact on the environment for many years to come. VOA's reporter Paul Ndiho spoke to Joseph Masembe, the CEO and founder of Little Hands Go Green, about their work and the importance of promoting environmental awareness.
It's a small organization whose main focus is environmental conservation, activism, education and advocacy, with emphasis on young children. And not just young children on their own, but young children in their homes, in their schools, and in the communities where they live. Our dream scenario is to, over the years, create a generation of consciously environmental citizens. And that is what we have done in the past decade, with simple, humble strides. But if you see the way the world is changing at the moment, in every other state, in every other country, you find that there is a lot of, there are floods, there is famine, there is, when it is hot, it scorches. When it rains, there are floods.
How many trees have you planted this far, and how many kids are involved in this project?
The beautiful aspect of what we have managed to achieve so far as Little Hands Go Green is that we have morphed, starting off from being into about 5,000 households within Kampala and the surrounding areas, now find us with a network of over 50 districts, with a primary school network that spans over thousands of schools. We are looking at having a total reach of about 1.2 million children.
The entire continent, and especially in East Africa, they're experiencing these torrential rains. There are floods everywhere. In Kenya, over 200 people have died as a result of these floods. Your take?
The biggest and the most important cause for this, by default, is climate change. However, it cannot be looked at in isolation. You need to look at it holistically, because there is rapid population growth in almost every other African country at the moment. And the kind of cities that were built and planned for a population that is not as vibrant and as huge as it is right now. So then there is a strain on the economy, on the facilities, drainage, so that when now the rains come, because of all these other effects of climate change, they come with the floods, they are torrential, and they find a city whose drainage is not up to speed, then they will sweep through. What our response to climate change so far is lacking, it is wanting, which means it is going to get worse before it gets better.
The unpredictable weather patterns,
yes.
Like you correctly said, governments in most cases they are not prepared. They are inept at responding.
Yeah.
What can they do?
We need to take advantage of technology. There are early warning systems, climate smart actions from the meteorological department of how to predict what is to come, how it can come, and then how they can possibly curb it. Because in some of these places, in the settlements, in the towns, the drainage system has always been bad. So anybody knows that it is a recipe for disaster. So in some of these areas, gradually they need to start to rework the drainage systems to suit the population that has rapidly grown.
That was Joseph Masembe, CEO and founder of Little Hands Go Green, a Ugandan NGO. Still to come, 2 South African doctors demonstrate that the sky is the limit for women. We'll be right back.
This week on Straight Talk Africa, can the people on the continent be uplifted, and can the economy evolve to include more people into the rising middle class? The International Monetary Fund's African Department Director, Abebe Amro Selassie, gives us the big picture. Join me, Vincent Makori, for an in-depth look at the economic challenges of the continent.
In other news, money is not apparently the motivating factor for gunmen who abducted 105 people in northwest Nigeria last week. They say they are not after ransom payments, but negotiations with the Zamfara state government, according to 5 families of the victims who were contacted by the armed men. The families say the abductors did not state the nature of the negotiations they want. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he is, quote, gravely concerned by fighting in recent days between the Sudanese army and the rival paramilitaries in the key Darfur town of El Fasher, according to UN spokesman Farhan Haq. The UN chief is also particularly concerned for civilians in the area who are already facing a looming famine. And thousands of Malians carrying buckets and jugs of mud joined the annual replastering of the world's largest mud brick building last weekend. It's a key ritual that maintains the integrity of the Great Mosque of Djenné in the center of the country. The mosque requires a new layer of mud each year, or the building will fall into disrepair. It's time for a health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with the latest medical news and notes. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Esther.
Well, limited medical resources in Africa is forcing some patients to travel abroad for specialized surgery. Now, a new special surgery institute has opened in Ghana to try and help. Sinanu Todd reports from Accra, Ghana.
In Accra, medical experts from the US are performing a special cancer removal surgery for a kidney patient. The procedure is minimally invasive and uses cameras and robots, and until recently was unavailable in this part of the world.
That one could have been done here. They already referred the guy outside, so he already had his visa and everything, and then someone told him about this place.
This place is the West African Institute for Special Surgery, or WISE. It opened in March to cater to specialty surgery needs in West Africa and beyond.
Plastic surgery, for example, there is just general plastic surgery trying to get wounds and broken bones to heal. But at the level that we are providing care, we do micro transplant of tissues. You lose a finger, we put it back, make an ear, make a nose, make a face.
Dr. Kofi Boahene, a native of Ghana, is a head and neck surgeon, facial plastic and reconstructive surgeon at Johns Hopkins Hospital in the US. In 2004, he set up his Foundation for Special Surgery, or FSS, to provide specialized medical care to people where they live.
People from all over the world will come and see me in the US. I'm able to, 2 hours, change their lives. I take a plane, it takes 9 hours, 10 hours to fly to Ghana. Same situation, clinical situation, that person may lose their eyesight or may lose their life.
For this reason, Dr. Boahene and the FSS built the West African Institute for Special Surgery. He says the center will bring globally trained health professionals to Ghana.
In neurosurgery, in plastic surgery, in head and neck surgery, in ear surgery, in urology, the highest level of specialists are all congregating here.
Medical professionals from Ghana and across Africa can train and practice with these global experts and equipment.
Here I get to see robotic surgery. Yes, it's going to be the first in the country. So I get to see that. And that's awesome. That's pretty cool, using robots to, fix things. So yeah.
Dr. Boahene says the institute will bill patients who ordinarily would have traveled overseas. However, for patients who cannot afford care, the institute will raise money from friends, family, donors, and former patients abroad, just as they have done for his Foundation for Special Surgery. Sinanu Todd, VOA News, Accra, Ghana.
Now to South Africa, where 2 doctors are demonstrating that the sky is the limit for women. Both are nuclear medicine physicians at the Steve Biko Academic Hospital in Pretoria. Tuso Kumalo has more from Pretoria.
It's early morning and Dr. Khumuso Mukwala is already working in the day ward in the nuclear medicine section of the Steve Biko Academic Hospital, preparing to examine and treat a non-melanoma skin cancer patient. She is one of only 100 nuclear medicine physicians servicing South Africa's over 60 million population.
Nuclear medicine is an ever-evolving field, so you constantly have to be updating yourself with the latest developments that are happening, so you have to read a lot.
It's a fairly new discipline of study, and she has successfully emerged with a Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery degree, fellowship at the College of Nuclear Physicians, Master of Nuclear Medicine, and a doctorate in nuclear medicine philosophy.
We actually one of the first few centers in the world that was doing actinium-225 prostate cancer therapy, thanks to our mentor and our head of department, Professor Teche.
As the head of the clinical unit, Dr. Mukwala's daily work involves supervising other physicians who are also making their mark in the nuclear medicine field.
In this room, patients who are referred by various doctors with many conditions are scanned, and the technologists are generally the ones responsible for scanning in this room, and will place the patient on the bed and stand behind that door glass and let the patient lie down and be imaged, sometimes for a period of 5 minutes, sometimes for as long as an hour. So it has to be a very comfortable situation when the patient is lying on this bed.
Once the technologists have completed scanning the patients, the pictures are then transmitted to this gamma camera room where Dr. Mukwala and other nuclear medical physicians analyze them.
So the way that we do our images, we inject a radioactive compound into the body that will then follow a certain physiological process depending on what it is that you want to image at that time.
It's crucial for them to look very closely at the images to ensure that all abnormalities are reported.
Right now what we are doing is PET-CT, and PET-CT is usually requested by doctors of patients who have cancer, and so we report those, and it helps the doctors know whether the patient needs systemic treatment or local treatment, and or we also help to see if the treatment has worked or not. And so they can, with the results of our scans, they can manage the patients better.
She is also thrilled to be paving her path in these uncharted waters.
Very proud to be a nuclear medicine physician. I enjoy it. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy learning, and I think for me it was the best decision career-wise.
Dr. Mukwala also enjoys her work.
Even if I try to sit and think what other options could I have taken in terms of career choices, this is always my number one for me, because nothing beats having put or seeing that joy from the patient, or a patient coming in initially and they couldn't walk, and then we gave treatment, and now the patient tells you they feel so healthy, they can even run marathons. It's the best feeling ever.
Dr. Mukwala also has words of encouragement to other women.
It's not impossible. The sky is the limit, and we shouldn't allow the glass ceilings that are placed there for us as females to dictate who we become.
As the current president of the South African Society of Nuclear Medicine, Dr. Mukwala and her team have been invited by the International Scientific and Medical Organization, the Society of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging, to attend its June meeting in Toronto, Canada, to recognize the great strides they are making in nuclear medicine. Tuso Kumalo for VOA News, Johannesburg.
Such inspiring women. Well, that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on X at Linor Mudu. Back to you, Esther.
Thanks, Lino. Be sure to watch Lino Mudu's health report each Tuesday on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.